Jasper, I don't think, has told everything that he knew, but from the new witnesses that we've spoken to, we believe that the Jasper account is more likely the truth of the 6/7th of December than anything that Nicholl said about Steele and Woombs. Simple as that. Was he telling the whole truth and nothing but the truth? I don't think so. He's been locked away just as long as Steele and Woombs, and his family have told me personally, that he doesn't want to talk because he's had enough. He's been let down, and he just wants to get on with his life. Do you blame him? Yeah. Next question, Lee.
Okay, moving on. I understand that you'd like to talk about a number of concerns regarding the crime scene.
Good question, David. How are we going to deal with this? I would personally like to quickly go through the photographs, because if we go through the photographs, as an experienced SIO, having been in many a murder scene, there's lots of why. Essex Police haven't done a whole lot of basic, simple things. And I also just revisit the question of, was this the murder scene? And this has come up on social media. I was asked that, I think, 6 months ago, and I said I didn't think so. Having looked in more detail, it could well be that the murder scene was elsewhere and this was a dump site. But I'm not saying that, because I want a forensic review to take place where we sit round a table with people of experience and give answers to the questions that I raise. Park that for now. Let's just look at the scene photographs. And this is going to take a little while, but I think it's well worth it, because I've had the time to do it. I'm working from poor quality photographs. Myself and David had a briefing here a couple of weeks ago, and I think David is accepting that there is a concern about the issues that are in front of us. So let's just talk at the top of the lane and quickly go through the photographs, and I'll just raise them and David can cut in. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go to...
Before we start, I think the first thing to say before we even start this is this scene is a disaster.
Correct.
An appalling disaster. Not enough photographs taken, not enough video footage taken.
No, we haven't seen any.
And it's a complete and utter balls up from beginning to end.
If you just look at the top right hand corner, you'll see a number. So if you go back one, David, to number 1. Right, this is where I believe, and David believes, that the white shiny new Sierra was seen at I think it was 6:30, 7 o'clock
In
the morning. No one with it. But our gut feeling suspicions are, and no, Essex haven't raised an action to try and identify the driver or make an appeal. Who was the driver of this shiny new with the bit in the back, you know, the spokes and all that.
So
top of the range,
Sierra Cosworth.
Sierra Cosworth, that Essex Police drug squad and surveillance team had access to. So our question is, you know, was this a police vehicle? And my understanding is that the tyre tracks that you see there have been checked, or not there, just round the corner, and they have the same type you get from a Sierra Cosworth. So that's question number 1. Why didn't Essex Police make further inquiries about the white Sierra Cosworth seen at the top of the lane before the bodies were found? Why was it there?
And can I just dealing with that, because it is a question that keeps coming up, is there were 2 Sierras, white Sierras, in Essex at the time. One was with ourselves at Brentwood on the RCS, permanent issue. The other was with the Technical Support Unit, TSU. They were both tracking cars. So they were in those days you use an RF tracker, and they were both tracking vehicles, and they were used. The Brentwood car stayed with the Regional Crime Squad, either Harlow or Brentwood office. The other car was used ad hoc by the drug squad. Now, very quickly, there was an operation against
Rolf.
Tucker Tate and Rolf at the time, particularly against Rolf by Essex Drug Squad. There was an ongoing investigation operation targeting them. They knew categorically you could not follow Pat Tate and probably Rolf So they would have put a tracker on that car. You wouldn't do conventional surveillance on them. So they would have put a tracker on the car. And gut feeling, no one has ever admitted this to us, but gut feeling is that what actually happened that morning on the 7th of December is the tracking car came on, as it would do, comes on before the conventional surveillance team. It would have gone probably to Rolf's address, no Range Rover. What you used to do is you have to go high, and you then get a vector, you get an area to look at. You then go to that area and you literally up and down till the audible sound and the what you can see on the pad, the screen, got closer and closer and closer. You would then find, gut feeling is that they got to Workhouse Lane, they've seen the Range Rover down the end of Workhouse Lane, probably someone's gone and had a look and they found 3 dead people in it, which would then account for the phone call to Dave Bright at 6:30 in the morning. Dave Bright has made a witness statement to the Operation Obtain team
2 years later, but still.
in 2002, not 2 years later.
Yeah.
2002, he makes a witness statement saying he was told by a drug squad officer,
No name,
wouldn't get the name, 6:30 in the morning, that they were dead. That's an hour and a half before they're actually found by the farmers. And you've got Ralph Barrington, the other man of integrity, who gave evidence at court and admitted that he knew earlier than 8 o'clock that they'd been murdered. So you've got 2 of the most senior officers in Essex have made massive balls ups. One's made a witness statement on oath, yeah, so he's subject to perjury, and the second one has given evidence on oath, both of whom knew that they were dead before the farmers found them. And we think that's because the tracking car had been deployed there and found them earlier that day, which accounts for why, it may also account for why this scene was so badly handled, because they needed to get that Range Rover out of there. You had the world's press descending on it, and of course they've got a tracker on the vehicle, potentially even a listening probe in the vehicle. I doubt the probe, but I would think almost definitely a tracker, and that's why they had to drag it out that lane.
And also at 6:30 you've got an officer who checks or does a PNC check on the Range Rover from outside Rolf's address.
Yeah.
It clearly wasn't there because it was at the bottom of the lane. So is that them checking out to see if anybody in between the last time it was seen done a check and it was elsewhere, it had been removed by police or whatever.
Yeah.
So lots of suspicions around. Listen, there's no hard evidence, but without experience we're putting that forward as a potential could have happened in this case. So move on to the next photograph.
And just very quickly, all of that surveillance evidence has never been disclosed.
No.
They've buried it, they've hidden it.
There should be logs, David. There should be logs.
There should be surveillance logs, there's probably videos, never been disclosed. Moving on to the next one, number 2.
That's the top of the lane, and just on the left is the car. You can just see the police car in on the left. This is where Darren Nichols says he drove into, and you can see the police car on the left. But I've got the next photograph, I think it shows it. Yeah, there it is. So you see the police car on the left. This is where Darren Nichols says he drove into, back down the lane, came forward and dropped jack booms off at the top of the lane. Where is the tyre tracks to show that? Driving in, backing in and then coming forward twice. Yeah, and he had the Passat with 4 different tyre wheels marks on it, and not one of the 4, which was recovered by the police in May 96, none of them there. You've got to be careful when you look at photographs. You've got to know and understand when the photograph was taken, because if you speak to the farmer, there was a dusting of snow all the way down the lane, and if you understand with tracks and snow, it depends on the temperatures and how the snow melts as to what mark has been left underneath and the material underneath. Was it mud? Was it tarmac? Was it shingle? Was it grass? So lots of, won't bore it with it now, but that there I probably wasn't taken about 10, 11 o'clock in the morning. So let's move on. So there are just more tyre tracks down the lane. And again, the frustration I've got is that DC King's statement doesn't go into any great detail as to which tyre. I can't see the exhibit because I haven't been able to speak to him. I only got his statement before Christmas. So a bit of work to be done. If DC King's listening, please pick up the phone and talk to me, because I'd love just to sit down and brainstorm, what we see in front of us. If you look here, and I'll just keep going, next one. Right, and again. Now you see that police tape? That is the tape that the police put down for allowing all these senior cops of badge and ranks and to walk all the way down the lane to the crime scene and back again. What the hell? You know, come on. Should be anywhere near being allowed to go anywhere down that lane to see the Range Rover. That's until the experts have done it. It's been so that is the route that it was put down to follow. You can see the marks there. There's tyre tracks. Won't bore you with the data because there's not one single tyre impression that's identified to any vehicle other than the farmer's. Yeah. So any known vehicle has only come down to the farmer's, which is up and down there, and they were down there at 8 o'clock, as we know. Look at the big puddle, and I just flag that up now. When did that become water from ice is interesting, because he says that when he drove down there, it was still iced over. But I flag up at 6:30, 7 o'clock. Would that puddle of water have been there, or would it have been ice? I just asked that question out, and there's a reason for it. Let's move on.
I think there's a very important point here whilst we're doing this is that, you know, don't lose sight of the fact that according to Darren Nichols, Jack Wilms and Michael Steele walked this lane in Wellington boots.
Yeah. Wilms both ways and Jack and Steele one way.
Not one Wellington boot print found in the entire, you know, it's quite a distance, not one Wellington boot print has been recovered, identified, you know.
Well, at 6 o'clock at night, the mud in them tyre tracks would have picked up on, you know, the snow. There might not have been enough snow there, or there could have been snow there, but you would have let a mud mark, and we'll come to that in a second, in the mud.
What's these two here, Albert?
Yeah,
do you remember?
Yeah, they're pointing out to tyre impressions.
Okay.
Round the corner. Right, so it goes straight ahead, and that's Workhouse Lane that goes to the top at the back of the Wheatsheaf pub. I know a lot of people have talked about that, but I don't think there was any evidence that a vehicle or anybody had been down that route. Yeah, does that make sense? So it's about another half a mile. Yeah, straight ahead is on the map, White House Lane. Turn right in a second is a farm track. So the correct location of where the Range Rover was found was a farm track off Workhouse Lane, close to the 5-bar gate. So that's, keep going, that's tyre tracks again. Round the corner. Photograph. 11, keep going. Yeah, right, that's interesting. That's a green cartridge case. Those used in the murders were blue, but quite rightfully it's an exhibit. It's been lifted and it's not connected.
And it's probably that one there, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. You're right. The one before, yeah. Okay, right, round the corner. Keep going. Right, here we go. Right, you can see the Range Rover in the distance in the middle. That's where the first responders put their tape across to say no one's allowed past there. Okay, going again. But people were allowed past there, as you can see from the photograph.
What's these two here? Oh.
They're tyre tracks. There's no footprints lifted at all until you get to the Range Rover. Right, let's go back one, please. Right, on the left, you can just see, David, on the left, you can see up on the grass bank, there's tyre tracks, yeah? Yeah, you see the tyre tracks there? Yeah. Now, I asked the question of a farmer, when you drove down there, how did you get back to the top of the lane and wait for the police? And he said he couldn't remember what he did, but the only options available, he's either back in, because he's gone past to the slip gate on the right-hand side, yeah, or manoeuvred round in the driveway. And then that's the thing to do. See where it's a bit black on the right, gone into there. But the tyre tracks on the left in the bank, for me, yeah, it's at least 2 vehicles have done that. Won't go into the detail of it now, but flag up that a vehicle has turned round down the lane. Next one, David. Yeah, you see that black bit there? In there is a gate which goes into the field, and that's where you would turn round. Right, look, 2 points here for me. That brown clump, which I believe, and not mentioned or discussed in any exhibit, right in the bottom right-hand corner, it looks to me like brown ice from the underbelly of a vehicle. On the left-hand side, in the water, in the puddle of water, I thought having read the judge's comments, that was carbon from the Range Rover. That was my understanding when I first looked at it. Listen to other people and you see there's a clump of earth that's come off the top of the ridge down onto the top of that. So that, my initial response thinking was that black puddle, that black long strip was carbon from the Range Rover. Yeah, which meant that the Range Rover would have to be sitting down the lane with the engine running to allow that amount of carbon to be there. Some people have said it's a black plastic bag, or what you get from hay around the farmer's field, but it definitely hasn't come from the Range Rover, because the angle of the exhaust pipe is at 8 o'clock, not 6 o'clock. And we've got a close-up of the Range Rover. Well, I've got one in my office, but David's got a picture of the actual Range Rover. Any carbon would have gone into the bushes on the left. So what I'm saying is that a possibility that there was a second vehicle down the lane, which is contrary to what Nichols and the Crown's case is? Does that make sense? Yeah. So for me, there was another vehicle down that lane. Prove to me that there wasn't, is the message. Next one.
Okay, I think the important thing there is, the rear offside door is shut.
Yeah.
Another view.
Now, is that carbon or is that a black sack? And I'll also add to that, if it was either of them, where's the sample, where's the exhibit, and why wasn't it taken away? Because it could have been left by the people, they could have had the gun in it and they've just dumped it. You tell me. Okay, next one.
But what you can see is lots and lots of footprints.
Exactly.
All over the back there.
Now, we know from the exhibit, the statement of PC, right, here's a very interesting one for me. Look at the tyre, look at the back mudguard on the offside rear wheel. For me, that vehicle has been in wheel spin at some stage, and all the sand or light coloured earth that is round that tyre and on the others at 6:30, 6:45, if it had driven down the lane, would have been washed off, because the puddle is big enough to have washed that off, or you've seen evidence of that. So the question for me is, where was the Range Rover and the streets around Essex, main streets around Essex? You wouldn't have had that amount, yeah, if it had been driven in snow or wet conditions, that amount, and particularly on the mud flap as well. Okay, it could have been a day before or 3 days before, but my question is, where was the Range Rover? Could it have been in a field or on the side of a lake, and it's picked up sand on all four tyres? Next. And you can see the sunroof, which is ajar at the top. Does that account for why there was no frost on the Range Rover when it was seen by the farmers? But I think the frost we can answer to some degree. Next, David.
Yeah.
Right. This is very interesting for me. Look at the middle there. You've got two pools of blood, or one big, it's a stain, I've described it in the witness statement. You've got blood stain in the middle at the bottom of the driver's door, and just in front of it, on better quality photographs that I've seen, there's a little bit more, right? You can just see. So there's blood there. My question is, how did that blood get there? Because Nichols, from what I've read, that there's no leakage underneath. There's no pooling of blood inside the Range Rover to have dripped down into that location. What could have happened is that the driver's door was opened, and blood from the door that you'll see in a second, spattering of blood, has dripped there. Or has it come off the gunman and he's opened that door at some stage? Just flag that up. That has not been addressed. There's no blood anyway further down that track, and no blood behind. And we'll get to the blood on the other side of the Range Rover. So question mark, and the sketch done by D.I. Hughes, the crime scene manager, has got it in the wrong location. Yeah, so he's made a few mistakes, but I'm not going to dig into him. He's got lots on his mind and he's recorded it. But there is a blood stain there that hasn't been accounted for me. Did somebody take a sample of it, and whose blood is it? Because if it's not Rolf's, yes, I'm asking, well, how the hell did it get there? Because Rolf's the front seat driver. Next one, David. Again, more. See on the right hand side, you see the cartridge cases. We'll come to that as a subject in a second, but just flag up two cartridge cases, and just to the front, and this is right at the front offside wheel, you'll see a blue cartridge in the mud, yeah, at the very front of the Range Rover. Debated at the trial, and I'm still not satisfied. Go back to the 21 day. Debated at the trial, and I'm not sure as to how this happened. I can understand Rolf's head being to the left. He's been shot, and that's, I think, reading the forensic expert, King, I think his name was. Won't trouble you with it right now. But Rolf's head is to the left, and he's been shot through an open offside rear door. So that would, to me, make sense. What doesn't make sense to me is Tucker's head is to the right, and he was shot 3 times in the head to his right. So why wasn't his head in the other direction? I need an expert to tell me why that is the case. Now, is it, and don't forget, this is before it's taken off to the police station. So that's how they were found, yeah, by the farmers and when the photographer, and they haven't gone, they said that they never went inside that Range Rover at all. That's what they said in all the questions we've asked. So just flag up the heads either side. At the trial, I'll be quite honest, I haven't picked up on exactly what was argued about because I haven't had all the material. Right, next one. This is blood on the near side tyre track, which you'll see in a second has come out the rear window. Another one is, whose shoe print is that? Whose shoe impression is that? And did they take a photograph of it? Sorry, did they take measurements of it? The answer is no. Around the corner.
Sorry, so that blood there,
that's
front of the...
That's in front of the Range Rover.
So how do you say that got there?
Yeah, that's interesting, right. If you go to the back, what's happened is that Tate was shot in his head through the closed window. The window was smashed and his head was up against it, and you can see blood dripping all, he said 16 hours for blood to come out of his body all the way down the outside of the Range Rover into the tyre track. And because it's a slope in the lane, the farm track, it's the naturally flown, because it goes into the field as well. So you've got that blood that as the snow has melted, the water has got higher and level, and it's pushed its way down into the field. So that blood there is in the puddles in front of the Range Rover and at the side of the Range Rover. Next, David. Yes, those they're zigzagging pattern. So whose are these? None of them measured and lifted. Right, you see my point about if that tyre had been in water in the puddles at 6:30, 7 o'clock coming down the lane, that wouldn't have been there. So my point is the Range Rover was left down the lane much later than 7 o'clock. That's my simplistic thinking in this case. And that's the near side now. Right, if you just, next one, yeah, there we go. Lots of blood there. And go to the next one, David, it should have his head. Right, you can see the window smashed. Down the outside there's blood and it drips. You see it? See the blood going down the outside of the Range Rover? Yeah, okay. Next one. If I've missed anything, David, just shout. Yeah. We'll come to the shoe impressions in a minute because that needs an explanation and the order of fire. Right. This is now the front, that's the
front offside.
Front offside, yeah. That's the one you could see. That's the other two are up on the bank. So that is right. Whose marks are those? Now we have sent that mark. See that, you can see that shoe impression in the mud. Now 2 theories on this for me. Did it belong to one of the police officers, because their Dunlop type shoe boots do leave that impression, but we've sent them off to an expert to hopefully give us a definitive answer as to what does that come from. It's either from a first responder or police officer's Dunlop Wellington boot mark, or it's from a Reebok trainer which has got a similar impression, and we'll come to others in a second. So let's do through the whole lot, Dave, and we'll come back to the cartridge cases and the shoe impressions. We'll just finish this off. I've already talked about, there's the blood we talked about before. Now this is interesting. That is on the rear of the Range Rover. That is body tissue, skin, yeah, which is at the back of the Range Rover, offside. And the Range Rover is to the front, so the Range Rover is in front of that. And has that come off when the gunman, and this is an interesting one as well, David, I think that is the police officer's boot mark, because he says in his statement that he walked from that side round the back. So I do believe that that is his.
But they've never been.
But that should have been, as soon as Nichols said that Steele and Williams were willing wellies, then there should have been an action raised to check with the crime scene team and the photographs to see if there is any Wellington boot mark. Listen, if that's Steele's mark proves it is definitely not one of the police officers at the scene, for me, great. Let's move on and make an inquiry about that. Even put it to Steele. You with me? Where were you, wellies? Don't think he was wearing wellies, but it's something that wasn't done that needed to be done. Needed to be bottomed out, for want of a better word. Next one. That is, you can see how close out the undergrowth is to the Range Rover there. Not quite sure what's that one showing, but move on. Not so much. Right, this is an interesting one, David. You see in the front there, right, you can see a shoe impression. Right, that to me is been put there after the snow has landed, has been settled, because it looks as if they've been walking in mud and then stood on top. That is either a Wellington boot mark or a Reebok. Yeah, so it needs, and I haven't made my mind up on what it is. That looks more like a Reebok than it does a Wellington impression, because I've got both of them and I've looked at them, but I'm not an expert. But they've gone off to an expert to try and identify for us who he was. But my complaint is, why wasn't that measured? Yeah, and a photograph close up taken of it. It wasn't, and that is wrong and just unprofessional. The gate there, you can see the firebar gate, it had to open inwards. There was talk that Steele was allegedly was off to open that to allow them to go into the field, but there's no evidence of that whatsoever. It's only come from Nichols. Right, this is interesting. There are there's three shoe patterns that are found, yeah, around the Range Rover. One has been identified as a high-tech, or may well have come from a high-tech, because it's circular, yeah, and it's got the pattern of a high-tech trainer, which is very similar to a Reebok. Me and David thought that this was the one taken at the side of the Range Rover and where the gunman stood with his right foot. Not satisfied that is right now, because of what I've been read from DC King's statement, that when the Range Rover was moved, they found shoe impressions in the mud that was underneath the Range Rover. So that's why I need to speak to DC King, because in his witness statement and his photograph album, it doesn't say where that is. It just says, yeah, well, from his statement, is that, I can't even see an exhibit number, so I don't know what exhibit number that is, because I can't read it. It's something on that one. You can see on others, but on that one, where was that? I believe that was underneath the Range Rover, and photographed quite rightfully. That's the sort of detail I would have expected to see in all those shoe marks down the scene, and it wasn't. This one is a zigzag, which is also interesting, looks like the majority of the shoe impressions around the Range Rover. And you see the zigzag markings? So that hasn't been identified to any particular shoe, and I think it's quite common. Yeah, so, and this is interesting. I want to know where that is. Where the hell does the blood come from? And where was that taken? I don't know. Can't see the exhibit number. All right. I've even asked if the defence team have got original photographs, and the answer is, this is what you've got. We've got to work to that. So, questions to be answered for me. Next one, David, nearly there. Yeah, and that is back to that's back to the high-tech. That's a round circular marking, which there's a statement from high-tech to say that that's impression on the shoes. The big question, who does it belong to? And what size were they? I think it was actually size 10, although I'm not 100% sure of that. And there's back to the zigzag. Keep going, David. We're nearly finished, hopefully. 40, and I was a lot more. We don't. That's the back of the Range Rover. You see, that's a spare tire.
Yeah.
I don't know what. That's interesting. I believe that's. Don't know. Question mark about that. There's no description in the index of what 40B is. It just shows 40B. So we've asked the question, what is that supposed to be?
It's wadding, isn't it? That's what we think it is.
But where? You're with me? The big question is that the outside of the Range Rover? It's definitely the outside range, because you see the left-hand mirror, left-hand window and the upright. So that's on the outside of the Range Rover, but I don't know exactly where around the Range Rover that is, because the index doesn't tell me. Now that's hair tissue. Which one of the handrails inside the Range Rover is that? Yeah, I think it's a rear offside. Yeah, because the hair has gone, yeah, off of Tate's head and hit the roof of the Range Rover as they do it right. Let's go to the next one, because we probably don't want to show. Yeah, we don't want to go there.
No.
What we're saying is we don't want to show the public the terrible crime scenes of the post-mortem and the movement of the body. But what is interesting, now there's my point, look at that. Back to my question, I am more than convinced that that's sand, and it's been in wheel spin, and it's been somewhere else that night. Just flag that up. You're a lorry driver.
That mud looks too light to be the same type of mud.
Yeah. It's not the same.
No, they took samples, and that's what I'm frustrated about. I don't know if they took samples of the wheels. What I do know is that on the boot of Tucker, there was similar colour sand, and you can see in the tyre tracks there is a similar sand, looks like sand, may well have been a layer of earth or sand in that tyre track has been checked, and it's not the same. Does that make sense? Yeah. So we don't know where that's come from. I would. There's work to be done on that I'm not prepared to share now, but it's intriguing what my eyes are telling me there about the tyres. And do you agree with the wheel spin? How does the sand or the earth get on the other side? That's because of wheel spin. Only reason, isn't it? No other reason.
Yeah, also, just on that, obviously, if they'd come from wherever they was before, like 20-minute drive, surely they would have lost a lot of that from the...
Who says it's 20-minute drive away? Who says it couldn't be a mile away? Just my suspicion. So yes, if it was 20 miles away, you would have. That's my point. It's been. If you look at what Nichols says where the Range Rover went, we know where it was at 6 o'clock. We know where it was at 8 minutes past 6. We know where it was when Andrew Reynolds said. After that, until 8 o'clock in the morning, other than our witnesses at, who we believe are
just after 11.
Yeah, not Roy. Yeah, Raymond. Is it Raymond? No, Michael.
No,
Michael writes Turnpike at Con 11. You know, so if that is right and he's accurate and he's spot on about that, they were seen then. But they were never seen in between. Yeah, so they could have been out and about, and that is picked up after they were seen at the Turnpike. Yeah, and don't forget, when you drill down into Jasper's account, there is a timing discrepancy that needed, just a little bit. Look, because he talks about 1 o'clock when they put to 12 o'clock. So was the time of death later than midnight because of what Rogers the farmer said? So so lots of areas that needed a deeper investigation. Yeah, our gut feeling is they were killed gone midnight. Yeah, and that is supported by Rogers and what the new witnesses are saying. Just a few more photographs. We don't want to show all the horrible pictures that we can see of the victims when they were photographed at the police station, but just a couple of points. Rolf's right hand is in a relaxed position, and the steering wheel is in the wrong position when you look at the photographs, because the blood is flowing horizontal, but won't bore you with that just yet. We might get a picture of that in a second. Most important for me is look at Rolf's left foot. it's an automatic. Why is his left foot on the brake pedal of an automatic? And if you look at his right foot, it's all twisted up. Yeah, the right foot should be on the brake pedal, not his left foot. So how did that, how did that become? Keys in the ignition, and we know that the steering, the petrol was a third full, the gear stick, the automatic gear stick was in drive, and the handbrake was off. Right, so if you just look at his hand and the steering wheel, interestingly, this is for me the mistake made by lifting this Range Rover lock, stock and barrel, as described by Mr. Dibley, down to South Wooden Ferrers police station. The steering wheel is clearly in the wrong position when it gets to the police station, because blood doesn't flow horizontal, as you can see. So that is wrong, and the right hand for me has moved in the movement, and it's been put back where I think it was. Because if you remember, Dibley said that when he saw the Rolf in the driver's seat, that both hands were on the steering wheel, yeah, and in a relaxed position. So just flag that up. Not making a point about it, but just the fact that mistakes are made, yeah, and moving the Range Rover for me was a bad mistake. It should have been examined inside, yeah, totally, and the body's removed. Put a tent up, put blocks down to cover the shoe impressions, and get on with doing a proper job. Okay, I think we've finished the photographs that I've got concern about. So the points I'm raising, there was I suspect there was a second vehicle down the lane, not happy where how the bodies are, how his left leg is, Rolf's left leg is, and also shoe impressions, not enough photograph. There was a Volvic water bottle that was exhibited, no photograph, don't know where it was recovered, and there was a ring in the back seat of the Range Rover that was taken as an exhibit. So lots of exhibits that weren't photographed in situ that should have been done, and it, as David has described, it was a poor examination.
Just put that one back up, but just very quickly. This is just the bit, as you said, again, there's the steering wheel with the blood going horizontally, not vertically. You can see the gear, it's in gear.
So yeah, sorry, yeah. So it's in
How
gear.
do you get that car, how do you drag,
how do you drag it
that up onto a low loader in gear?
No, haven't had the truth told, and they actually opened the door, and that's why the blood is in the soil on the outside. Remember I pointed out, how did that blood get there? Did it drip off the driver's door when they were putting the gears, the gear into neutral, and being able to tow it up onto the back of the
bottom line is that the entire scene was destroyed the moment they dragged that Range Rover out of there. Yeah. The bodies would have moved in the transportation back to the police station,
yeah.
And even when they got back to the police station and the pathologist started working, the bodies, we're not going to show you the pictures, but bodies are no more than a couple of feet apart.
Yeah.
So you've got the same pathologist transferring whatever was on one body onto the next body as she does her examination.
You can see the other body. You can see them side by side.
Yeah. So you've got cross contamination throughout this entire scene. And it's not a scene, because by this time it's been destroyed. It's too late. It's gone. You've taken it out of the original scene. If you go back to when I interviewed the scientists, they made it very, very clear. That should never ever have been removed. The examination should have taken place at the time, at the scene. The decision to remove it was bonkers. Again, I use that word, mad. And they destroyed the scene. And you go back to the question of, this is basic policing, basic SIOing. As an SIO, you wouldn't destroy the scene. Why did they destroy the scene? Was that because
their lack of experience, or
was it lack of experience, incompetence, or was it because they had to get that car out of that lane for other reasons?
Okay. Shall we move on to the next point?
Can I just ask a question on there? In that front footwell there, you can see like a yellowy sort of patch of whatever it is, whether it's mud or dust, whatever.
Good point.
Do you think that is the same stuff that's on the wheels, or is that different?
It's very interesting. Look,
Good
picked
point.
up another point.
Yeah.
Well, spottedly, you're right. Hang on a sec. Yeah, now I see what you're saying. Now that is very interesting, and there's quite a bit. It's like a fingerprint, you can't date it. So is that off a driver's shoe from the day before or the day before? But let's just concentrate it to the day that the murders took place. That to me looks like the same colour that's on the tyres. So was someone, in the front of the Range Rover, driving it or whatever, and has deposited off his footwear that light coloured soil or that earth. Good point. Now, but there again, if there'd been some on the brake pedal, can you see, is the brake pedal there? Is there a bit on the brake pedal as well? Because that would tend to. No, there's a little bit there as well. Look, isn't there? Look at the brake pedal. A little bit. Yeah, you see, there's a little bit in the brake. But if you look at a whole, so for me, I would want to look at the forensic file to see if they've taken that I'll call it earth particles, sand particles, taking a sample off it. Because if it matches with the tyres, I'm not sure if there's the ring. You see the ring pattern? Yeah, that's off, we believe, the velvet water bottle.
That also looked, if you go back, it looked like the sort of, back to the last one, in the
footwell.
Yeah, in the door seal there, it looks like that same yellow powdery.
Yes, it is. Yeah, I've looked at it closer. Yeah, it just doesn't happen if it's all the way across there, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, down there.
Yeah, on the outside of the seal where the door.
Oh, down the outside there. Not sure about that. Is it? Yeah, but the important one for me is is the one up on the carpet on the left-hand side and round the front, down the.
We'll have a look in a minute at the other side as well, but this is the rear.
Yeah.
So you've got the crisp packet.
Yep.
Where's that leaf come from?
That's a good question. Is it blown in there whilst the gunman was firing from that door?
It sits on top of the blood.
Yeah.
It's on top of the blood.
Well, they've opened it. The police have opened it, haven't they?
Yeah, that's what I'm
They're also
saying.
getting. Or has the killer opened it? No, it's on top of the blood.
It's on top of the blood.
So that's happened after they've been killed. God, we're getting more questions. This is why we need to sit round the table and debate what we see in front
You've
of us.
got the Volvic bottle ring there.
Yeah.
Where's the bottle? Outside.
Not photographed. Yeah, it is exhibited, but we've never seen it. Don't even know where it was found.
You then got.
I don't know what that is, David.
No. You've got stuff in the back there,
Yeah.
which looks like, if you look, that looks like another
crisp packet.
another crisp packet in there. Look, identical crisp packet. So we've asked. We wrote to Essex Police and said to them, can we, as a result of the meeting with the forensic scientists, we asked, can we have access to the exhibits? Can you send? We don't want them. You send them to our laboratory, Forensic Access in Oxford. Send them independently to our laboratory so they can be examined with the latest techniques. Because 1996 or 95, the DNA was in its infancy then. What they can do now is off the charts. They can develop DNA from the most minute things now. We asked them to send all of these exhibits up to Forensic Access to be examined, particularly the shell casings, because what was suggested to us by the forensic scientist, the gun expert, was that it's very unlikely that the assassin would have loaded the gun with gloves on. He may have worn gloves when he carried out the assassination, but it's highly unlikely that he loaded the shells, the cartridges, into the gun with gloves on. So they should still have DNA on them, or fingerprints. Essex Police refused, blankly refused. Why? Why would you? Because the reality is, if you send them up, and Michael Steele's fingerprints or DNA are on those shells,
right,
game over. Mick, we'll phone him up, we'll speak to him. Mick, you told us a pack of lies, you killed Tucker Tate and Rolf, or Jack Williams. Mick, Jack, you told a pack of lies. Why wouldn't you send them up there? It stops all of this rumour, innuendo, conspiracy theories, the whole lot, just by submitting those. Why wouldn't you do it? but they won't do it. Why?
Just adding to my frustration is that an exhibit, a shotgun cartridge, and we'll talk about the order of fire and where they were found in a second, where that leaf is where the exhibits officer said he lifted he lifted a spent cartridge, blue one, from the inside of the Range Rover. Where is it? Where's the photograph? Why wasn't it taken as it before it was lifted? So that's missing. Yeah. And then can we just go to the photograph of the driver's door, the glove compartment, and just show you where the last...
Oh, can we just, before we go there,
yeah, go.
Just go to this one here, which is 55.
This is Tucker's.
You're just talking about that, Lee. Look at the floor. Here. That looks like sand. Look, if you look at that, Albert, look, if you look where the 2 feet have been, so you've got the mat sitting on top of it. That's not an inlay, that's a mat sitting on top of it. So what you've got is you've got that yellow, sandy type.
Well, that fits with Tucker because he had that on his boot.
Yeah.
Tucker had, valid point, David. Was Tucker out the vehicle? Because the big question is, where were they? Yeah, after the 1844 call. That's the question everybody's asking.
This is the view from the other side.
That's the rear passenger.
So a quick zoom in on that one.
Nothing there. You're right. The carpets are different. That's grey, isn't it?
Yeah. That carpet's fine. That's clean carpet. So that is tarnished. That carpet is tarnished.
But also, can I make a point here? On the carpet, they've lifted shoe impressions of Tate, but if steel was in the back of that with brand new Wellington boot marks, where's Steele's shoe impression in the carpet? Yeah, as alleged by the Crown. It's like the shoe prints up the lane. None. So if he was sitting in the, bear in mind he'd been threatened to kill him, so why is he sitting in the back of a Range Rover with a guy who's allegedly going to kill him? Doesn't make sense. Oh, there you are, David. Is that wear and tear on the carpet, or is that mud?
No, that's mud.
Like yellowy mud, isn't it?
That's tissue fluid.
Yeah, listen, we can be here all day, and it's great that we're going through it, but you can see my point is this needs an expert, yeah, to sit round the table and brainstorm what we see in front of us now, 25 years later. But yeah, here we go. Now his right foot in particular, you can see that light coloured mud, isn't it? Yeah. And round. Okay, again, it's like my boots at the rugby club. I've still got mud on them from 2 weeks ago. You've got Lizzie Fletcher saying that Tate said they were in a field with Tucker the night before. So were they in a field the night before? Or were they on the side of a lake waiting for a delivery or whatever? So you have got, mud, stroke sand on Tucker's boot that was found when he was at the post-mortem, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And there is that, likely the same colour inside the Range Rover and the passenger side. Okay, I think we've...
and I think, you touched on a point there that's quite important, is that, Lizzie does say that they were out the night before with the machine gun. You also had Pat Tate had a gun in his house, and we know that from Brian Rolfe that they had purchased 3 handguns elsewhere, and yet they're unarmed down the lane. Right,
can we put up the sketch of the order of fire, the sketch that the DI had? I just want to cover the, it's been talked about and the order of fire. I don't think we'll ever say 100% which shot was fired first. The point I'm going to make in this interview now is question mark where the cartridge cases were found. That's all I raise because from the witness statements I have read, I think there is agreement that 6 shots were fired from the open rear offside door. Which order they were fired at, we don't know, and that is 2 into Rolfe's head, 1 wadding, and this is wadding for those who don't know what wadding is. So that is not, this is not identical wadding off the cartridge cases used. I think they were gauge 7. So, but that is what wadding looks like, and the pellets stay in there, and obviously when it gets fired from the gun there, they spread in all sorts of directions. So that is wadding. 1 was found inside Rolfe's head, and the other wadding was found on the dashboard and on the glove on the handrest of his left hand near the handbrake. So bits or fragments of wadding was found in the front of a Range Rover. 3 waddings in full, not broken or split, were found in Tucker's head. 1 was found in Tate's belly, just above his waistline, inside the body, and then from the rear near side through the window, you've got 2 shots fired into Tate's head. 1 skims ahead, and I think it was split, and you got wadding found on the back seat, on the back footwell. The door could well have been open. That's caused the blood to go into the snow. So just trying to marry up where that is, and the other one was in his head in hole, and for want of a better word. But I haven't seen those. They haven't been photographed yet. So I would want to make sure that as described in the statements, were they a whole wadding or were they a split wadding, and basically the order of fire I don't really think matters, but common sense would tell you that you would take the driver out first. You'd probably stop the rear passenger by hitting him in the belly, and you take out Tucker by 1, at least 1 each. You wouldn't do 2, then 3, and then let the rear take like a half a chance of getting away. So lots of debate. So there's only 7 cartridge cases found. So here we are. This is the sketch in front of us. Just quickly look. You can see the sort of rectangular shapes, small triangle on the right hand side. Those are the 3 cartridge cases that are found in the snow. The one to the top where it says Rolf is much closer to the wheel. My question is, how did it get there? I think it's too close to the vehicle. Yeah, just flag that up. The driver's compartment door where it says next to Rolf on the right, you can see one that was in the box. You can see one above the word headrest. Well, that's not been photographed. And the 2 on the near side where it says broken glass, they're not in the exact position, but they were on that side. And one was trampled on in the snow, and they nearly missed it. And the answer to the 8th one is either still in the shotgun, or it has been ejected and it's gone into the bushes and Essex have missed it. So they're the only 2 explanations in relation to it. The length of the gun has been debated. Was it a full length shotgun? Was there 2 guns? Yeah. 1, and bear in mind that all the cartridge cases have come from the same shotgun. So the striation marks, because if you look at the blue bit that wraps round the wadding, on the end you've got the gold cap, and there's markings on there that come from the same gun. I haven't found the gun, but there's markings that say that it's from the same gun. We've had the noisy one say that there was 2 guns down there. I've thought long and hard about it, and there could have been 2 guns down there, but I won't waste time debating it now until I have had more information come available to me that could actually prove that. So wrapping around the order of the shotgun cases and where they were fired, I just don't, in my honest opinion, understand how the shotgun cartridge got into the driver's glove box on the right hand side. That's Rolf's right hand side. We can show a photograph if you like, and how the one underneath the word Rolf in front of you in the sketch, and then that's much nearer the tire, how it got there. So personally I have got concerns, but I might be wrong. You know, we have had an expert stand there and he did demonstrate with blank shotguns and push the gun to show the order, and all come out from the right hand side. You know, and was it a long barrel, was it a short barrel? So it still needs a bit of work to be done in relation to where they were found, and I don't think the order really helps, but it could help in relation to where they were found. Or is it a dump site? Is it a stage scene? And have they been dropped round there because they were shot elsewhere, but the cartridge cases were kept and dropped round there? Or was a shotgun used to fire into the sky? But we know, why would you not shoot Tate in the head from the rear offside door and get the hell out of it? Why go round the other side and shoot him through glass? And he'll know that if you go through glass, you're going to leave glass on the snow, which points the finger to say they were shot here. I'm just using my experience. I'm not saying I'm right, but just put all that out there to the people who are listening to say, well, yeah, you could be right. I might be talking a lot of rubbish. But from my experience, there's something not right about that crime scene. And I need blood spat. They use the word splatter, but it's spatter. You know, where was it? You know, how did it end up over there on the right hand side? You know, there was also the pathologist saying there was blood around the Range Rover, but I haven't seen any photographs of it. So, as I said, and the time of death for me, so easily achieved. You know, it could have been done without even touching the bodies. Just stick a thermometer inside the Range Rover, the ambient temperature you need, check the temperature of the water in the Range Rover to see how long it's been sitting there. All basic stuff it could have been done, it wasn't. Because the time of death is crucial, isn't it?
Can I just ask a quick question here? It was actually a question from one of the viewers. It's one of their questions to ask you, but it just fits in as we're talking about this now. So, if they've been shot into that car,
Yeah.
how comes there's not any sort of ricochet, like blowing out the front windscreen or other windows or such?
Because of the close range.
Close range. Because that, if you look at it, that's still inside the body, the head. If it had gone out the other side, yeah, that's why you've got parts of the wadding in the near side, yeah, on the where the gear stick is, and on the window, the sill of the front of the Range Rover, is that it hasn't been strong enough yet to have gone through to the windscreen. If that had hit the windscreen with lead in it, it would have gone straight through the windscreen. But it's been stuck in the body. Yeah, so it's stopped in the body, and that's why it hasn't gone out the other side, other than the one to Rolf.
So,
And also the height as well. It appeared to be a downward movement through the head, through the body, rather than a straight-on movement. Yeah, so that is, and if you look at the headrest, you know, there's one through the headrest. Yeah, as I said, the order of fire is important to try and identify where the Carter's cases ended up.
Right.
And that's interesting. Yeah, that's exactly the point you're going to make, because David is putting up the interview he did with Mr. Boys. Here we go. See how tight it is in the back?
right, so this is...
I just want to show how you eject that. Because Albert couldn't be here today, so I wanted to show Albert exactly what you're saying, because it is so important. He's looked at this crime scene for 21 months.
Yeah,
and
well, that was lucky, because I would have forgotten about them and you would have had 2 free snap caps.
I think the point here, I spent, this is just a short video from that day, but you can see from this video, this is the rear offside door where the killer fired from.
Yeah.
We think that the likelihood is he put his left foot up onto that.
Possible.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Go on then.
Yeah, but
I don't know.
no, that's what I said, you know, you can't be absolutely certain of the sequence.
No.
But
Exactly.
probable and possible.
Right, you can't be sure.
Right, I'm ready when you are.
Yeah, whenever you're ready, go. So you think, so that's where those shots come out, and then as we said, you think that one there is probably where he's leant in to go and shoot Tate in the abdomen.
Yeah, another one over there.
Right.
Because you can.
Can I touch this? Am I allowed to touch it?
Yeah.
Just pick them up.
Do you want them?
I don't know.
5 or 8.
And you feel the weight difference, right? There's a weight difference. If that comes out empty, it's going to travel.
Go that wee bit.
Yeah, it's going to travel further than that. Because of the weight difference.
This is the other one that's interesting, Philip. Is this one that was in here? You think that comes over here, do you?
Yeah. But there is some.
Yeah, but
There is some suggestion that I've read, David.
Yeah.
That's come out, but there's some suggestion that the bodies were in the vehicle, removed in situ.
believe it or not, the fired in his gun.
All right.
But I was doing the proper bit just to make sure.
Yeah.
But if I do that,
Ah, it's a lot. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Show us that again.
You notice it was the strength of pushing.
So
It makes a difference to how far it goes.
Was that this cartridge
Yeah.
was actually on Rolf's lap,
And it's rolled into.
and when they got the body out of the wherever they took the car, because they took the bodies in the car, it's rolled into there.
And that's why it's question. The question is, how has it ended up in that?
Yeah, it's not gone in there straight away. It's gone onto his lap and then gone in there.
Yeah, which is an example of how the scene has been contaminated.
Absolutely, it's just, yeah, absolutely.
I can't get a second one.
That's all right. Go on.
In order to get a second one into the magazine, I need to put the top.
No, that's fine. No, just
Do that one.
yeah. Go. Yeah.
But if I do it, just for completeness.
All I say is the door for me is in the way for the one that ends up at the front offside. Yeah, front offside tyre. The other two in the snow to the right could easily end up there. So that's the point I make. Listen, I'm not an expert. All I'm saying is, tell me how it happened, expert. And I know David spent a lot of time with him, and we haven't even talked about the other side. So he must have had one in the chamber to have gone round the other side to eject it before he fires the first one into Tate's head. So there's lots of combinations that probably won't take us anywhere.
The important things there is,
Yeah.
number one, I'll put it back up, I'll stop it there, won't Joe? So if you see here, right, there's some really important things come out of this day I spent with the forensic scientists. If you look in there, right, how does Mick Steele fit in the back of that car alongside Pat Tate?
That's question one.
Mick Steele was a big bloke then, as big as, if not bigger than, Pat Tate. And yet, you know, if you look at all the evidence that's gathered, Pat Tate was sitting in the middle, so he had his feet either side of the, you know, the front two seats. He's sitting in the middle, effectively. You know, if Mick Steele got in there as well, there's no room. There's no room. I've been in it. You can't get in it. The other thing is, in order to get in there, you literally have to pull yourself in. You have to grab hold of either the headrest or the seat to pull yourself in. Yeah. You would undoubtedly leave some sort of forensic trace as you got in there. The other point is you leave a forensic trace all over the bloody thing. If you've got, you know, body tissue, blood, fingerprints, all sorts. You know, that was the point that Angela Gallup made. You cannot, when two things meet, there is always contact evidence. There is no contact, there is no evidence, no forensic evidence at all that Mick Steele was ever in the back of that Range Rover. None at all. Now that's impossible. That's impossible. Either it wasn't good enough then to find it, or it didn't happen. But again, you go back to that question that we've raised with Essex Boys. Submit those exhibits again, and let's have another look.
Yep.
But that's the first point. Is the second thing is, if you look here at that step, where you've got a step up there, we think, and it's likely, Phil Boyce said, that the assassin would have had his left leg on that
up
step,
on that, yeah.
With the gun here, right foot planted where you see that footprint, that trainer print on the ground, and then you.
I just reserve what that mark is because we don't know which one it is, David.
And then you've got
if there's a mark.
You've got the first one into Rolf's head, second one into Tucker, third one here, bang into Tate's abdomen, back to Tucker, bang bang, two more, bang one more into Rolf. Then, for whatever reason, either around the front or the back. The front more likely because, as suggested by Phil, as he walked around the front, he ejects shell number 6 over on the front near side, and then he comes round to the rear door window there, and then stands by the rear window and fires, according to Phil Boyce, the first one through the glass and the second one through the broken glass in the Pat Tate. Now the door here must have been open still at that stage.
Yeah, I agree.
Right? Because what you have got down here,
Blood
the
spot.
rear offside, is you've got blood and tissue fluid
Correct.
on the floor. So,
Have you said?
Pat Tate, if you can imagine, the assassin is shooting through the far window there on the near side. He's hit Pat Tate here, and literally parts of his head, skin, has then gone out through the open rear offside door. If you look up the top there, where the handrail is at the top, that's what we think that picture is with the hair. That's Pat Tate's hair that's then gone up the top there as well. So the force of the shot has fired through an open rear offside door. So whoever the assassin was, or the police, have shut that door.
After.
Yeah.
Correct. 100%.
So there's some big questions there. But you go back to the biggest question of all is, was it incompetence or was it deliberate in destroying that scene?
Just my frustration around it. The cartridge cases on the near side, the two, yeah, they're not in the position that they were actually photographed in. And that was brought up at trial, because I've seen it, is that they were much nearer the rear, nearer the one that was towards the rear of it, rather than being up towards the middle of the Range Rover. So again, not taken, you with me, because they missed it. So they missed that cartridge case. It was trampled on. You can see it in the photograph. It's been trampled on. Yeah, and for me, yeah, if it's more likely, and I don't have a problem around the front and back, but it's why have they gone to the near side to shoot Tate in the head when, as a gunman, you want to get them brown bread, you want to do your job and get the hell out of it. And you could easily, with either a shortened gun or a full-length gun, we could stick the gun in his head and just gone bump bump, because that's the message, the warning. This was, Tucker was shot 3 times because you were out of order. Yeah, that's why they were shot 3 times. A signal. It's a signature.
There's another thing on the day that we were there. This was quite interesting. There's still holes in the ceiling. That's the ceiling of the Range Rover. Yeah. So the interior of the
was replaced.
Has been replaced. We don't know.
So that's a pellet mark.
We think that's what we assume they are still pellet marks that have been left in that in the car. But again, you know,
yeah, don't forget this is the original. We have satisfied that. So it's a new seat because it's different pattern.
Anyone getting the back of this to shoot someone, you've got this footprint. You've got a footprint down there. You've got a trade print. They've either put a foot on there.
They're not the easiest vehicles to get in, are they?
No, that's what I'm just looking at. I mean, it's now you see it for real. It's a lot tighter.
Yeah, it is. Okay, I think we need to move on, or else we'll be here all day.
Okay, and then I think the other big question that keeps getting raised is around the gun. I mean, it keeps getting brought up by certain noisy people about, you know, Jasper says that it was a sawn-off, right? And he does refer to it as a sawn-off, and it fitted in the, you know, the head bag. Well, if you take a pump-action shotgun, particularly 8-shot, and you look at that there, which was one of the guns that
Mossberg.
Phil Boyce suggested it would be a Mossberg 500 Cruiser 8-shot pump-action. As you can see, you've just got a handle, you've got a grip.
Yep.
Yeah? So you've lost, you know, what, 10, 12 inches of stock.
We saw how long that stock was on the one he had.
Effectively, so it could either be a folding stock or a pistol grip. Now, if that is inside a bag, a holdall bag, to all intents and purposes, anyone looking at it is going to think it's a sawn-off.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that. So all this nonsense you keep hearing about, oh, you know, Jasper says it's this and it wasn't because it's...
The experts can't give an answer, David.
No.
They cannot say what the gun was until it's recovered to marry up with the cartridge cases. End of.
Exactly.
Simple as that.
But that is potentially, that's your murder weapon.
Yeah.
That's what it could be. 8-shot, pump-action shotgun. And obviously, if Jasper's correct, with a backup pistol.
I think I'd like to cover cell set, because if you look at what convicted the Steel and Wombs, other than Nichols' evidence, what was the support evidence? there was only 3 points for me. One, Donna Jaggers said they were off to meet Mickey the pilot that night. One, Donna Jaggers. If you look at what Brian Rolfe and others are saying about Donna Jaggers, big question mark about her honesty and truth. Told some of the truth, but no, particularly the machine gun, where that was recovered and how it was handed to the DI Florence, etc. So won't go down that route again. Question mark around Donna Jaggers. Secondly, we had Sarah Saunders saying that she had told Michael Steele that Pat Tate was going to kill him. Well, hang on a sec. You've got Michael Steele getting in the back of a Range Rover with Tate, Tucker and Rolfe, and he's been told that they're going to kill him. Come on, guys. Come on, you wouldn't do it. Just basic common sense. So that's the second point. And the third one is cell site. Cell site is crucial, but not crucial in my eyes. If the jury believed that Woombs was at Sudbury and his cell site pinged off the BBC mast just south of Willamere Caravan Park, and he was within range of that mast, why didn't they believe? Yeah, and they've convicted him of being down the lane and convicted Steele of being at Childerditch and in the car park. Yeah, so they're the three key locations. Why did they find him guilty? Yeah, because you've got, it's either, they were miles away and they got a signal miles away. It was imprecise and it should never have been relied upon, and it should have been kicked into touch straight away, in my honest opinion, because it was so unsafe to be used. So they're the only three things that supported Darren Nichols. No CCTV, no independent eyewitness, nothing with Nichols, telling so many fibs and lies and untruths in most of his interviews. So let's talk about that magic word. And we're talking about an expert here, David Bristow, who's the best in the country, normally a top prosecutor, and he's done cases that I've been involved in that his evidence is spot on. And he's done the job that we're doing pro bono for almost the same length of time. His two statements are here, or the two exhibits, reports that I have used, to satisfy myself that he's on the right lines, is there. Listen to him. He was interviewed on Sky. He knows what he's talking about, and he uses the word likely or highly unlikely. David, I'll let you explain the cell site, and I think we can put some supporting evidence up as well.
Yeah, I mean, very simply, David Bristow is the UK's leading expert on cell site, and was at that time.
Yep.
His evidence was not taken, I suppose, wasn't believed in the original trial, and in the Court of Appeal they subsequently did accept his evidence, and they discounted the CCTV, the cell site evidence. They discounted the cell site evidence at the Court of Appeal stage, but obviously were still convinced of Darren Nichols telling the truth. But those building blocks that supported Darren Nichols' original evidence, one of the major building blocks, which was the cell site, has fallen away completely. And people who keep referring to it need to understand it. It's completely imprecise. It's complete and utter. In the early stages, this was the first criminal trial, that this had ever been used. It was used proactively. It was a covert intelligence source that was used by specialist teams at the time, such as ourselves on Regional Crime Squad, Flying Squad, but it wasn't used in evidence. Yep. And this was the first time it ever was. So it was treated as correct, and it wasn't correct. David Bristow came along. David Bristow gave evidence at trial, and subsequently he was not allowed access to Jack Wombs' phone by Essex Police. Had he been allowed, he would have carried out the tests that he did subsequently carry out with Jack Wombs' phone, because he was allowed to have it after they were convicted, and he carried out a number of tests in Workhouse Lane, 70 plus phone calls he made, not one of which logged with the appropriate cell tower, Hockley, which, if you look at this photograph here, this is some of the evidence that was presented. So if you look at this, down to the bottom right hand side is where the Hockley cell site is, and you can see line of sight. You can get a signal from where Jack Womes says he was at the Wheatsheaf pub, but you cannot get a signal at Workhouse Lane. And if you look at the next one, this is line of sight pass between the Wheatsheaf and Workhouse Lane, and this is the Vodafone Hockley cell tower. So those two calls, very short calls, 2 seconds total, 1859, which the prosecution completely rely upon to put Jack Womes
Down the lane.
at the murder scene. Yeah. The come and get me call, if you like, 1859. So you've got to remember, 1844, Pat Tate is on the phone to his girlfriend, Sarah Saunders, or his partner, as was then, that he split up with. That call finishes 3 minutes 47 seconds later, so say 1848. So according to the prosecution, according to Darren Nichols, Pat Tate, Tony Tucker, Craig Rolfe are murdered between 1848 and the come and get me call, 1859.
Correct.
11 minutes, right? 11 minutes, that's the window, right? 1859 call, Hockley cell tower, the 1859 call. David Bristow, the world's leading expert on cell site and telecommunications data, says absolutely categorically, his words, highly likely or highly unlikely. That means as good as, from an expert, you won't get any better than that. He says Jack Womes were in Workhouse Lane. When he made those calls, he was more likely at the Wheatsheaf. He could have got a signal at the Wheatsheaf where he says he was in his alibi, but he was not in Workhouse Lane. And the reason for that, very simply put, is if you stand in that lane,
Yep.
if you're the Range Rover in front of you, the gate in front of you, if you look over to your right, there's a bloody great big hill on top of which sits the house, the farmhouse.
Yep. Rectory Lane then.
The signals don't go like that. They go in a straight line. So the signals coming out could not have gotten over that hill. It couldn't have gone like that. The signal goes in a straight line. There is absolutely no way that that phone would have connected with the cell tower as described by Darren Nichols and the prosecution. It's impossible. So, you know, that's not us saying this. This is David Bristow, UK's leading expert, who says Jack Womes was not in Workhouse Lane at 1859. Now, if you put that together with the timeline, and importantly, David Bristow was never asked by the defence, which is, you know, a real problem. He was never asked about the 1712 call back at Sudbury. He's never been asked. And that's because everybody missed it. The prosecution missed it. Well, they may not have missed it. They may have just deliberately ignored it. But that 1712 call is so important, because if you go back to where we first started this conversation, you know, if you accept that Jack Womes was in Sudbury, Suffolk, at 1712, and not at Marks Tay at 5 o'clock, everything he says after that point for going forwards is a complete pack of lies. Everything. So, you know, there's some really important stuff here. Cell site either proves Jack Womes categorically is innocent. The other point to be made here is recently, very recently, in the last sort of 3 months or so, there's been some very stupid people on social media stating that the cell site shows that Mick Steele was in Rettendon. Absolutely not. Complete and utter rubbish. There is no evidence at all that Mick Steele was in Rettendon on the 6th of December 1995, and his phone does not go and bounce off of any cell tower that puts him in Rettendon. That's an absolute load of rubbish and nonsense.
Can I just add a couple of points there, just being ultra cautious. In relation to the 1859 call, the first call that Womes made on his phone pinged off the Ingatestone mast, but didn't get a signal. 1 second. 1859 for 5 seconds, it pinged off Hockley, yes, and the defence team kept asking to use Jack Wilms's original phone, the phone that he had on the day, to check the signals down that lane, that to use a monitor to do it with me for the trial from the expert witnesses and David Bristow. So why wasn't the defence, i.e. David Bristow, allowed to use the original phone? For me, that is wrong. Yeah, so there's something not right there. Bear in mind, park all that. If the time of death is midnight, we're sitting here talking a lot of rubbish, because it doesn't really matter, because it was nothing to do with the murders. Yeah, people don't seem to understand that. If the time of death is midnight, yeah, and we're satisfied they were killed at midnight, then what we're saying here now, we can talk about till the cows come home. So what if he was in Workhouse Lane? It wasn't the time of the murders.
Yeah.
The next one is in relation to what some people might pick up on the 1712 call, is if Jack Wilms was at Marks Tay at, say, 50 minutes past 5 or 12 minutes past 5 or just up the road, could you have got a signal to the BBC mast, yeah, which is 10, 12 miles away, or were there other cell towers close by that you could have picked up on? So that is an area that you would need to check out, probably too late now anyway, but it should have been done at the time, like it was done, because we'll talk about Childerditch, we can talk about, which is important as well, is that if you look at the Childerditch cell site evidence that allegedly puts Wilms in the car park at the halfway house at 1803 and 1809, pinging off the children, there's a thing called Jury Hill in the way. And when you look at his evidence, David Bristow's evidence, he says he's more likely to have been in the village or on way to Bullpen than he was in the car park. So that's that one. And then more importantly for me, using the triangulation for the 1844 call, which is when Sarah Saunders called Pat Tate for 4 minutes, not 1 minute, on the phone for 3 minutes 48 seconds, out of the Wickford cell site tower on triangulation. It's there, and I'm looking at you now, Lee. You are the crime scene. There's a hill called Rettendon in the way, and David Bristow said that it was highly unlikely that he would have got a signal from Wickford if he, Pat Tate, according to Nichols, was just driving down into the top of the lane at 1844. And to my right, and to where David is now, to the back of David's head is a place called Rayleigh Stroke the Hungry Horse. So you could not have got a signal at 1844 from the Hungry Horse, which, if you look at the timeline, he is just about to pull up into the car park at that time, just before or just after 1844. So he's on that route there on his own at 1844. Yes. So Mr. Steele couldn't be in two places at once, either en route to the Hungry Horse, yeah, along the on the 129, yeah, from the 129 where the signal doesn't reach him, or getting into the top of Workhouse Lane from the main road as it was then, in the back seat with Mr. Tate to 2 minutes later blow them away when he's still on the phone. So it just doesn't fit. You know, and if there's no if he can't get a signal and his timeline puts him there, something not right. So please, the officers involved in this investigation, if you're watching this interview, which we probably talked too much, please come and talk to us, because there has been a serious miscarriage of justice and it ain't right.
It amazes me as well that they're not taking on board of that guy's professionalism to just a word of Darren Nichols. It just doesn't make any sense.
No.
Well, I've looked at the Court of Appeals. You know, the trial judge, I think he played it down the middle. He said you either believe the Crown or you believe the defence. Yeah, so I don't think. Yeah, so and if they'd had the evidence of David Bristow of checking the original phone down the lane, then that would have been much stronger. Yeah, because I've already, you know, it was imprecise. Yeah, at the time. So he gave as much credence to the defence as he did to the Crown. Yeah, but when you look at the totality of it, and they never looked at the timeline, they never looked at the Range Rover. Where could the Range Rover have been at those times? The jury never had that. And calls missing. Didn't know about the 1806 call Susan Carey to Pat Tate. Didn't know about that or that setting. So Susan Carey, Claire Carey never gave evidence. What was given out, Paul Edwards never gave evidence about the 1826 call. So all those grey areas, yeah, just didn't help the defence's case to prove that this is where they were more than likely at that night, rather than where Nicholl said they were at. What? Come on, you just think about it. Steele has left his home up in Suffolk. He's gone to Marks Tay. He's then driven all the way down the 12 to Braintree, down the 128 to the halfway house on the 127. Then he's driven all the way towards Southend down to Rayleigh. He's parked his Hilux in the Hungry Horse pub. Then he's driven 10 minutes up the old 130 to blow away 3 with his mate Jack Rooms. Yeah, why do that when all he had to do was go Suffolk to Chelmsford, drop down into any of the pubs down the old 130, park up there, go and do the murders and get the hell out of it. They could have arranged to meet. So the meet places are where the cell site is, not where common sense would tell you to go. And you don't use your own vehicle in a triple assassination and keep it. Oh, there's so many frustrating points. It's that magic word now. We're in the stage of new evidence. And David and myself have got new evidence. We will not talk about it in any detail because, let's be fair about it, if it did get out who those people were, they would be definitely got it by one person in particular. But anyway, those involved just might think, oh, we better shut them up.
The reality is Darren Nichols told lies, and then you go to the second question: if he didn't do it, if they didn't do it, who did do it? And you come back to Billy Jasper. All of the Billy Jasper material is online. You can hear the interviews, you can read the 12-page statement. And I put out very recently, about a month ago, saying if anyone has got any material that would undermine Billy Jasper's account, please let us know.
Yep.
Nothing. We've been, well, you from day one have tried to pull Billy Jasper's account to pieces. Not happened. You know.
No, I've got concerns about it because, for me, David, I would like to meet. Well, you've spoken to him briefly, right? He's fobbed us off for the obvious reasons, but just to be 100% satisfied that he was on the right lines, and some of, if not all of what he's saying is the truth. Too much detail around other cases that no, he did that for a living, for want of a better word.
Yeah.
If you talk to Rowley Baker, his handler, will tell you that he was an okay guy. Are you with me? He was,
yeah,
and
right.
Look at people who share a cell with him as well. They're all saying they wouldn't want to mix with him. And yeah, he is a junkie. Yeah, he does have problems, and he has. He's had a shit life, really.
Yeah.
We
couldn't find him. We couldn't find him for long. We couldn't get any information about him for a long while, and then we found out he was in prison.
Yeah. He's
basically a lifer. He spent his life in prison. He did come out. He
went
did go
back in again.
He did go missing. As a result of which he did go back in again. I have spoken to him. He indicates that he did tell the truth. I don't think he told the whole truth. I think if he were to tell the whole truth, he'd probably get arrested for the Rettendon murders. You have to go back to that last interview, the very last interview, when they drove him back down to Rectory Lane, and he admitted at that point, and he basically says to them, words to the effect of, if I tell you this now, you're going to nick me. And he does tell them. He turns around and says, well, actually, I knew they were going to get murdered. And they do nothing. They let him go. You would expect the next words out of their mouths is, you'll nick my son. They didn't. They let him go. So he knows a lot more. We've been to his, when he got released, we've been to his flat. We've seen material documents that support the account of him being shot, when he was shot by an individual, again from Canning Town, which was during the period after he was released from the original robberies. He then committed a further series of robberies and went back to prison for life. But in that intervening period, he did get shot. I think he got shot 4 times.
3 times back head.
Yeah, I think the actual documents.
Says 4.
It says documents in his flat say 4 times in the head. So you shoot someone in the head 3 times, you mean to kill him. He survived, and I think I saw only within the last week somebody who shared a cell with him saying that one of the bullets actually came out while he was in prison. He was in the recreation yard. It's on social media. We've not corroborated that, but it would make sense. But he's been out. We've spoken to his family. He had always indicated that he would tell the truth when he got out, and that what he would be able to say would free Michael Steele. That hasn't happened. But then saying that, you've got a lot of noisy people also putting a lot of pressure on him. So there's people that would not want Billy Jasper to tell the truth.
Guys, can I just finish off with one last question for you? Obviously you spent a lot of time and effort into this case. Where does it end for you now, going forward?
We've done our bit, if you like. We finally got our evidence in before the CCRC. There is a review going on. If there is any justice in this country, if there is any truth and justice in this country, you would hope that this will get referred to the Court of Appeal, and me and Albert will be more than happy to go and give evidence. I recently spent 2.5 weeks transcribing the statements of the people, or many of the people that we've spoken to. There are some particular people who are of real concern, who, if this ever gets to the Court of Appeal and there is a public inquiry of some sort, those people will likely get arrested, and some of them are police officers. There is a massive stench of corruption. Essex Police can't afford for the truth to come out. It would decimate policing, not just in Essex. So the reality is, if there's any truth or justice in the country, Mickey Steele and Jack Williams should go before the Court of Appeal, and this should be a miscarriage of justice case. They should be freed and receive whatever compensation they're entitled to for spending their entire lives in prison. And there should then be a public inquiry into the corruption surrounding the case and how we ever got this far. Whether that happens.
And for me, well, if you look at Michael Steele, his parole hearing has taken over nearly 2 years now. You should get a result one way or the other sometime this month.
This week.
Or this week, whatever, it doesn't really matter. It's going to be soon, hopefully. 2 questions for me. If they keep him inside, then we'll even work even more harder to try and find more evidence, because there's still people out there we want to talk to. There's the footballer's name, what was his name, who was in the Fortune Award pub. We saw them at gave evidence, Dennis Wise, so he hasn't come forward. I think we would probably need to try and find Paul Edwards if he would talk to us. There's lots of people that I would love to talk to try and uncover the real truth of what happened. So if he does get out, we won't be allowed to talk to him like Jack Boom, so our involvement will probably be minimised, and then you just watch this space as to how long the CCRC are going to take. I do, at the very least, I would like a forensic review. To sit round it. We brainstormed it here today, and you've quite rightfully pointed out sand that earth I hadn't seen before. So there's lots of niggly concerns that need sorting out, around the table. And the file, you need the file to be looked at, because I often find, as a review officer, it's one of the first things I did. Get myself down to the lab, sit round the table with the scientists and see what else, where there's a missing hairdresser's card. Sometimes they take photographs before the fingerprint, so we can look to see, whose hairdresser ticket it was, or a business card it was. So we've got our suspicions, but it would be good to know what the number was on the back. Yeah, because it said mobile. Was it a mobile phone, or was it mobile hairdresser and no phone number on it? We don't know, because it's missing. Why is it missing? I wonder why it's missing. Yeah. Don't laugh at me, Lee, because I'm not going to mention that name. Ignore. So as far as I'm concerned, I'm still plugging away. I've made a statement regarding all the issues that I have uncovered, that inviting the defence to send it off to the CCRC, whether they do or not, it's up to them. I know David's statement hopefully has gone off, and I've made a second statement in relation to my knowledge of Jasper as an informant. Don't let's get this word informant. An informant for me is a person who talks to the police. He's either a registered informant, is either a confidential source who's not registered but still wants to talk, doesn't want to become a snout, but he might be a bank manager or he might be a publican or whatever, so he's still talking to the police. Or you get somebody who is just not happy to talk but doesn't want any identity known, but he will talk. So, you know, have people in this investigation talked to police and told them things? For me, if they have, there needs to be a record, either, you know, on a file correctly or on an intelligence docket to say this is what this person said, and I haven't seen any of that. So in relation to the word informant, it does have more than one interpretation, but you know, are they talking to the police? There's nothing wrong with people, particularly in a murder. You know, I've had it on the Stephen Lawrence case where people did talk to even me in the review that wouldn't make a witness statement, but they were still talking to the police. And it's your duty for me to talk to the police. If you've got nothing to hide, just tell them what you know. Whether you make a statement is another story. So I've rattled on, I've said too much, and you've got lots of questions for us. I'm going to have a comfort break.
Yeah, we'll wind that one
2
up
minutes.
and we'll get you back on for some question and answers.
Good.
Right, thank you guys.
Thank you.